Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Affordable Housing Conference of Montgomery County's founder and co-chair, Barbara Goldberg Goldman.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask it again at lunch. How many people in this room are or have been renters? Okay. How many people in this room have or want to be or are homeowners? Okay. You're proving my point. This is a take on somebody who I loved very much. My mentor, the late and great Barbara C. Jordan, who was a congresswoman from Houston, Texas. Make pretend this is a big ship. So we're all here in different roles. We're all here because we have a common goal, and that is to ensure that decent, safe, and affordable housing are available for everyone, especially here in Montgomery County and throughout Maryland. So we're all in the same boat. Our national anthem inspires us with ideas of what America is today and what it could be. We're focused on that goal by continuing our efforts to ensure that everyone throughout Maryland and in Montgomery County are housed in decent, safe, and affordable domiciles. This housing conference is in its 33rd year. On behalf of Ralph Bennett, our co-chair, and our wonderful board of directors, and I'm going to name them. I know they'll all be here at lunch, but if you are here now, I hope you'll stand up. Catherine Clay of PNC Bank, Jimmy Jones of Truist, Lisa Gavoni from the Montgomery County Planning Board, Evelyn Howard of Howard Associates, Terrence Kelly of Mid-City, Carmen Larson of Aquas, Inc., Rick Nelson, who is the former DHCA director and HOC chair and commissioner, Glenn Orland, he's the former transportation analyst for Montgomery County, Casey Anderson of Rogers Consultant and former chair of our planning board, Sally Roman, former HOC commissioner, Barbara Sears, formerly of Miles and Stockbridge, Kelly Vaughn of Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, Zach Trupp of GCAR, and Brian Rennie of Bizzuto Construction. Also, our general counsel, Ken Teckler, and Sheldon Kronzak, our attorney. A very loud and special shout out to our incredibly multi-talented executive director, Eva Lewis. I also want to recognize another arm of our family. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. Alvy Ocampo and Mary, Montgomery Printing, Tailor Made Experience, Petals to the Metal Florist, our photographers, Ron Sachs and Ed Kimmel, and the Delta Sigma sorority. We know them as the Deltas. They have been with us almost from day one, and you'll meet them because they will greet you. They rock our world. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone. The J.W. Marriott North Bethesda Conference Center, I never get the name right, but where we are today, has been a gracious host. And I want to pay a special thanks to the wait staff and all of the staff that's helped put this together. Thank you. An organization like ours would not be successful without the committed, dedicated, and talented individuals. Their talent, their creativity, synergy, collegiality, and mutual respect for one another knows no bounds. Without them, honestly, we just couldn't exist. Their commitment to our organization and to affordable housing is unwavering, so thank you. Please note in our program book and the loop on the screens on either side of the stage, you'll see our wonderful and loyal sponsors, including the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County, PNC and Truist, Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, Montgomery County Department of Housing and Community Affairs, GCAR, and Orlo. Of course, if you are not one of our sponsors, we welcome you to be part of our growing family. We are an inclusive group. So 33 years ago, when we founded AHCMC, we talked about this looming crisis of affordable housing. We knew that given the exponential growth of our county, that a potential explosive situation was on the horizon if it wasn't addressed immediately. Well, our county, state, and federal officials went into high gear, and they did just that. Indeed, we are fortunate in Montgomery County and across our state that we have always had dedicated and devoted elected officials who continuously work tirelessly to ensure that housing needs are met. They adhere to the belief and mantra that affordable housing is a right and not a privilege. We always rank healthcare and education and safety as high up on our priority list. But so many factors come into play, and every time we think that we're at this summit, we are climbing a mountain, we reach the top, and once we get there, another summit faces us, and we have to start climbing all over again. It's coupled with a continued growth and change of our culturally rich and diverse populations, with a myriad of different needs that must be addressed, and therefore, we still have miles to go before we sleep. Now, finally, we are being heard. I don't know if any of you have seen the recent Emerson poll this week. It was released just yesterday among all Maryland registered voters. And guess what? For the first time, affordable housing ranked in the top 3 concerns above education and health care. Immigration and threats to the democracy. This really is the very first time that affordable housing has ranked this high above the other issues. The cost of housing is out of control, and this is unacceptable. It's especially unnerving when someone who grew up in Montgomery County, Maryland, now is just unable to afford to live here as an adult. Today, we are privileged with a lineup of experts. Among us are individuals of exceptional insight and expertise, poised to enlighten and motivate and inspire us. We invite you to actively listen, absorb, engage in discussions, share perspectives. We want to forge connections. We're honored to host HUD Acting Secretary, hopefully soon to be Secretary, Adrienne Todman, during our lunch. Adrienne is no stranger to the Affordable Housing Conference. She's a distinguished recipient of our 2022 Robert C. Weaver Housing Champion Award, and she has been throughout the decades an integral part of our AHCMC family. She contributes to our mission through her insight, her contribution on our panels, and as a key speaker. So let's set the stage for our journey today. And you might want to jot down some numbers. They may surprise you, and they may not. We'll see. So in 2014, the median household income in Montgomery County was $97,783. That's the most recent data according to the Federal Reserve in 2022, because the median household income was $118,323, and the average annual household was $172,543. While Montgomery County is Maryland's 5th largest county geographically, it's the most populated, with a population of over 110 million. Projections indicate that we will have 200,000 more residents by 2045. And today, as we feared 33 years ago when we first convened, we're expecting a housing shortage. Surprise. We all know that Montgomery County's MPDU, or Moderately Priced Dwelling Unit program, is believed to be the very first mandatory inclusionary zoning law in the country. Since the law went into effect in 1974, our county has built over 12,000 affordable housing units. But as successful as it was back then and now, it is not the panacea. Many more tools are required to address the needs of our diverse and growing population. Thrive Montgomery 2050, the update of the county's general plan, is our county's long-range policy framework for guiding future land use and growth for the next 30 years. It provides an opportunity to look for new tools. Thank you, County Council and County Executive, for passing it. But we also need your help. According to Park and Planning, since 2010, here we go, housing costs have remained greater than 30% of Montgomery County residents' income. It continues to remain 50% of total renter households. Since 1990, Montgomery County added 42,000 renters. In 1990, only 32.1% of households, or 90,595 residents, were renters. According to data from CASA, today, approximately 40% of households are renters, or approximately 400,000 renters. Just 10 years ago, in 2014, the average rental cost for a one-bedroom apartment in Montgomery County, Maryland, was $934. Today, the average cost is $1,834. A two-bedroom in 2014 was $1,242. Can you guess what that number is today? $2,236. In 2014, the average cost for a detached single-family home was $400,000. Now picture a graph going upward. In 2017, that cost rose to $675,594. And today, can you guess what it is? The cost of a detached single-family home, this is the average cost, is $987,333. In 2014, the average sale value of an attached single-family home or townhouse was $339,331. In a 2017 GCAR report, the average cost of a townhouse in 2017 was $371,508. According to Realtor.com, today, The average cost of an attached townhome is $650,000. These numbers illustrate a significant trend why so many people, including so many of those in our service industries, our teachers, our police, our firefighters, cannot afford to live here without some sort of subsidy. The median housing income is $110,000, as I said, but the income required to afford a median home value is $125,000. So we've identified the problem, right? Now what do? Well, we do it together. Today, at least, let's try to identify some solutions. That's why I encourage you to really engage in our panels this morning. Let us vow to find those solutions together. By the way, this event, all day, we have 620, I think, registered to attend. So when you finish your panels, please try to come up here quickly so we can begin our lunch. But I will tell you that there is press here. It is open to the press. C-SPAN will be live streaming it. And we really hope that you will be able to feel, one, part of our Affordable Housing Conference family, and two, join us in our quest for decent, safe, and affordable housing here in Montgomery County and throughout Maryland. I'm going to ask my co-chair, Ralph Bennett, to come up. I'm not sure if Congressman David Trone is here yet. Is he here? Wonderful. So if the two of you would please come up. And we're about to hear really what's going on the Hill and who's David Trone.
Thank you, Barbara. I think anonymity is not an issue for Congressman Trone at this moment. Congressman David Trone currently represents Maryland's 6th District, first being elected in 2018. Because of his business acumen and social mission-driven focus, he was immediately tapped for one of the most prestigious committees in Congress, the House Appropriations Committee. He also sits on the Budget Committee and the Joint Economic Committee, where he is fighting to make progress on issues that matter to Marylanders, including the opioid epidemic, criminal justice reform, mental health, and funding for medical research. Congressman Trone grew up on a chicken and hog farm with his mother, a grade school teacher, and his father, a World War II veteran and member of the U.S. Army Reserves. Though the family lost the farm to bankruptcy, David was given an opportunity through education and earned a bachelor's degree from Furman University and a master's in business administration from the Wharton School of Business by taking out student loans. In Congress, Trone launched the Bipartisan Addiction and Mental Health Task Force and has made mental health treatment a priority. In January 2018, Trone released a $100 billion 10-year plan aimed at confronting the opioid epidemic. The plan called for allowing the government to negotiate lower prices for overdose medication, increasing funding for the National Institutes of Health, and expanding prevention programs in schools. He also co-chairs the Bipartisan Addiction and Mental Health Task Force with Brian Fitzpatrick. Most of his bills Trone passed on these issues have been bipartisan. In 2019, he hosted a workshop on the opioid epidemic. This past January, after the nationwide launch of the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, a 3-digit number to contact while experiencing mental health and substance abuse crises, along with Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania and our own Jamie Raskin. He reintroduced the Continuity and Necessary Evaluative Crisis Treatment, CONNECT as an acronym, Act to connect individuals experiencing a behavioral or mental health crisis with follow-up services. Inspired by successful efforts in Maryland to engage in follow-up services, the bill authorizes $30 million to create a new grant program through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration to support these activities. When he introduced the bill, he emphasized that, quote, "This legislation will continue to ensure that every call for help is not only heard, but also met with effective follow-up care. It's a testament to what we can achieve when we make mental health care accessible and affordable to everyone in every corner of the country." It's our great honor to have Congressman David Trone with us today. Congressman Trone.
Good morning, everybody. I want to first thank the incomparable Barbara Goldberg-Goldman, BGG. Thank you for all your leadership. Fantastic. Come on, let's go. Give it up. It's not that early. It's great to be here at the Affordable Housing Summit. As you know, most of my work is in addiction, it's in mental health, it's in education, and it's in dealing with the criminal justice system in this country. But today we're on housing, and we certainly all agree that housing is a basic human right. Yet many American families are struggling to find homes they can afford in the short term and, of course, in the long term. Almost 25% of renters have incomes at or below the federal poverty line, meaning these folks are living in constant fear of being evicted from their homes. Nearly half of Americans say that the availability of affordable housing in their community is a major problem. You just heard the Emerson poll today, up to number 3. We've got to give these folks a helping hand. During the pandemic, I remember meeting a young woman up in Gaithersburg who wanted to buy a home. A core component of the American dream for so long. She had a stable job, worked hard, saved up, still could not afford to get a home of her own. She was able to move in with her sister, save up her dollars, and eventually see her dream. But not everyone is afforded that ability. So we know that so many Marylanders are struggling with a housing supply in short supply. Zoning and land use, regulations, state and local problems are big issues here. But at the federal level, in Congress, we're working to pass legislation to help our most vulnerable communities. I'm a member of the Renters Caucus and was proud to sign on to the Rent Relief Act, which provides refundable tax credits for those making less than $100,000 and pay rent that exceeds 30% of their adjusted gross income. This bill would give folks a chance to save money, build wealth, and also help put food on the table and take care of their own health. Unfortunately, it's a Democrat-only bill. In this dysfunctional Congress that we have, this bill is unlikely to pass. That's why we have to figure out how to be bipartisan. Also know a significant barrier to renting is finding reliable child care. We're also co-sponsoring the Build Housing and Care Act, which would invest $500 million into child care centers in affordable housing buildings. It's common sense. They're the best way to help folks in need and get them back on their feet. Unfortunately, this bill has only 13 Democrats like myself. So it's not going to pass either in this dysfunctional Congress. We've got to find legislation that can reach across party lines. That's something I've been able to do in addiction, mental health, education, criminal justice, and that's why we're ranked the 4th most bipartisan member of Congress. But on a good side, we did pass the tax relief for American Families and Workers Act that passed the House. It includes an expansion of the child tax credit, one of the best things we ever did under Joe Biden. 2 years it lasted. It came out of our Appropriations Committee, which I sit, and then the Republicans killed it. But it's back in part in this bill. Also in this bill is a low-income housing tax credit. These two bills, these two pieces together are a big win for everybody in this space. We've got to get them through the Senate. I believe we can, but it's going to take pressure on the Senate to move to get the 60 votes. Luckily, it's tied to a tax break the Republicans like. So we're pushing to get this through the Senate, and I'm hopeful that in a slow day, they'll actually do something and pass it. But behind all this, we have three intractable problems. The first problem is inflation, 3.5%. We cannot seem to tap it down. The second problem is what's driving inflation, what inflation is driving, and that's the interest rates. The interest rates are causing people to be locked in to their home. 82% of homeowners have a mortgage of 4% or less. Those mortgages are so good, those 82% of homeowners, often starter homes, will not sell, will not put it on the market, because to get a new home, it's 7.5% or more. So we've got a huge amount of homes not going on the market. Then on top of that, new home construction, the demand is 6.5 million homes a year. We're building 1.6 million, 4 times less than we need. Why? First of all, the biggest reason, we don't have the workforce. We're 650,000 workers short. Construction workers, almost all the construction industry now is Latino. We need to change the third issue, and that's a big Congress challenge which I'd love to attack, and that's immigration. We need to drive immigration in this country, lawful, legal immigration, in-country immigration, where embassies and consulates in El Salvador, in Nicaragua, in Haiti, in Chad, wherever they are, folks can apply for immigration in country, not be at the Mexican southwest border, and have an attitude that we want more immigrants here. We've had 1 million immigrants we've taken on average for over 25 years. We never change a damn thing. We need to move that number up to 5 million with a path to citizenship within 5 years. If we bring more folks here, they will fix the housing shortage, and they'll fix Social Security because they'll pay into that, and they'll take a big bite out of the national debt because trillions of dollars of extra tax income will come from those folks. They'll all be taxpayers. So on top of that, we've got 300,000 Marylanders that are homeless. So we need to think about ideas in this group of how to deal with the office glut that's soon going to be $1 trillion meltdown of office space. With after COVID, no one's there anymore. Can we use some of that for homelessness? Can we use some of that to convert it into housing? These are opportunities, but we've got to see the landscape is changing, and we've got to work on the big picture. So in Congress, we're going to continue to fight to ensure housing is a human right, but we must work as a team. We've got to work together. Get this bill out of the Senate and push folks for big changes so we can deal with big issues like immigration. Thank you and have a great summit.
For those of you who are old enough, you'll understand what I'm about to say. Let's go to the videos. I guess you're not. That was an old sports thing a long time ago.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me again to be part of the Affordable Housing Conference of Montgomery County. For too many families living in the county and across Maryland and nationwide, housing is too costly or unaffordable. Home supplies for sales remain at near record low, and those shortages are greatest for lower price homes. This is unacceptable. Housing is a human right. No one should have to choose between putting a roof over their head and feeding their families. We must take action to increase the supply and affordability of housing. The tax code is one of the most effective ways to address the economic development needs in our communities. We have tax tools like the low-income housing tax credit, a tax credit to incentivize investment in rental housing, but we need to do more to fill the gaps, especially as it relates to home ownership. To build on these policies, Senator Todd Young and I reintroduced the bipartisan Neighborhood Homes Investment Act. This bill would offer tax credits to attract private investment for building new homes in under-resourced communities, as well for rehabilitating owner-occupied homes. To ensure the affordability of the homes, the tax credit aimed to cover the difference between the cost to produce these housing and its sale price. I'm excited to see this policy piloted in our state of Maryland through Governor Moore's Uplift program, which builds off the enactment of legislation in the Maryland General Assembly and my Neighborhood Homes Investment Act. I look forward to seeing its positive impact on Maryland's housing shortage. In addition to advocating for new federal and state tax policy, we must continue to support existing housing programs through the federal annual appropriation process. The fiscal year 2024 appropriations bill, which was recently enacted, includes nearly $6 billion for expansion programs for the affordability of housing and initiatives that address a variety of local community development and affordable housing needs. Housing is a key priority in closing the wealth gap and a valuable tool to build and pass down wealth. Safe and secure housing should be accessible for everyone in this county and country. I look forward to continuing to work with you to ensure that all Americans have affordable housing. Thank you for your support.
Hi, I'm Chris Van Hollen, and I'm proud to represent our great state of Maryland in the United States Senate. And I'm especially pleased to join the entire AHCMC family once again for your annual Affordable Housing Conference Summit. The work all of you do has changed so many lives for the better, and it has been a privilege to partner with you in your efforts over the last 33 years. That certainly dates me. I want to give a special thank you to your founder, Barbara Goldberg-Goldman, and to the entire board. We all know that a home is much more than just four walls and a roof. It's a place that feels safe, warm, and welcoming, a place that is the hub for everything else we do. And like you, I believe that Americans, regardless of their circumstances, have a right to a safe and secure place to call home. We know that we have a very long way to go to make sure that vision becomes a reality, because we are facing extreme shortages in affordable housing. That's why from Montgomery County to Annapolis to the federal government, a range of initiatives are in the works. President Biden has prioritized tackling the affordability crisis as part of his proposed budget, which requests $258 billion dedicated to affordable housing. The proposal includes $37 billion to expand the low-income housing tax credit in order to boost the supply of housing for low-income renters. In Montgomery County, where 1 in 2 new households since 2010 earned less than $50,000 a year, these funds would help ensure that more affordable options are available as we welcome new neighbors into our communities. And that's just one piece of the overall strategy. The Biden budget would also supercharge funding for public housing renewal, low-income renter assistance, HUD's affordable housing programs, and the Housing Choice Voucher program. This includes a $200 million increase in special purpose vouchers targeted to help those with urgent needs, such as individuals facing immediate homelessness, and those who are fleeing domestic violence or human trafficking. The Choice Voucher Program helps nearly 2.3 million people a year receive rental assistance, but there are still nearly 10 million eligible Americans who don't receive a choice voucher due to funding limitations. That's why the Biden administration is introducing 2 new voucher programs providing guaranteed housing vouchers for extremely low-income veterans and youth aging out of foster care. And last year, my colleague Senator Young and I teamed up to expand vouchers through our bipartisan Family Stability and Opportunity Vouchers Act. This bill would create an additional 250,000 housing mobility vouchers over the next 5 years, targeted to families with young children. It builds upon the work that we have done to create and fund HUD's pilot program, a program that has already helped thousands of families nationwide. In addition to supporting national programs to alleviate the affordable housing crisis, I'm pleased to have secured direct funding for specific projects throughout Maryland, including $1,175,000 for the Randolph Road Community Child Care and Community Center on the site of an affordable housing development here in Montgomery County. While we have a long way to go, all these initiatives will help address the ongoing need for affordable housing in Maryland and around the country. And I look forward to continuing to stand shoulder to shoulder with advocates, leaders, and partners like all of you until that vision becomes a reality for all. And I'm very lucky to have one of your alums on our team, Diana Eisenstadt, working every day to help tackle these and other critical issues. So it's in that spirit I want to end where I began, with gratitude to the leaders and participants in the AHCMC for over 3 decades of service to Montgomery County and Maryland. Thank you and take care.
Good morning, and thanks for participating in this year's Affordable Housing Summit. Hate to miss this because it's one of my favorite subjects to discuss, but I'm in Asia right now on an economic development mission. Before becoming county executive, some wanted to paint me into a corner as someone who didn't support development. I hope you've seen enough now to realize that criticism is pretty unjustified. I support the right kind of development, focusing on attacking our largest problem, which is creating more affordable housing. A good example is a project we broke ground on last year at Forest Glen. The project includes 189 affordable housing units, with 3 out of every 4 units meant for renters earning below or at 60% of the average median income. Projects like this one require a lot of cooperation, in this case, a collaboration between the county, Maryland Housing Partnership, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, J.P. Morgan Chase, BWE, Enterprise, and the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. My proposed fiscal year 2025 budget invests a record $169 million in affordable housing, including $65 million of new funds. By continuing to spend on projects like this one I just mentioned, we're doing our best to fill the gap in the affordable housing stock. For years, more affordable housing units were lost to new development or were just simply priced out of the market. Today, we're working with our community partners in new ways to ensure that doesn't continue to happen. Last month, we celebrated changes to our right of first refusal law, making it easier to work with community partners who help keep long-term tenants from being priced out of their homes. Looking back over the last several years, the right of first refusal was an option in hundreds of transactions, but only exercised a handful of times. That's because holding properties was costly. The new law eliminates the tens of millions of dollars needed to hold the property, which will help us protect more naturally occurring affordable housing units. Last year, I signed a bill into law that provides renters with legal protections against rent gouging in response to the sharp rise in rent hikes. The bill also provides a comfortable margin for property owners to keep up with maintenance and make needed repairs to get a return on their investment. It's another tool we are using to keep and grow affordable housing in our area. Since 2019, Montgomery County has produced more than 1,300 affordable units, even through the pandemic, and another 1,850 units have been preserved. I know that finding an affordable place to live in our area is a top concern of our residents. I'm glad to have efforts like today's working toward adding affordable housing in our region and in Montgomery County.
So now you can clap. So we are very fortunate indeed to have the county's Director of the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, Dr. Scott Bruton. He's going to introduce you to our leader in Maryland, Secretary Jake Day, who is the director, the secretary of the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And I'm going to tell you a little known secret before they start. Dr. Bruton, I don't even know if you know this, but Jake Day is the former student of our co-chair, Ralph Bennett. So come on up, Scott, and let's get started.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. Looking forward to a wonderful day at the conference. Pardon my height, I need to adjust these a little. Secretary Day has a long and commendable record of public service. He served his hometown, Salisbury, Maryland, first as president of the City Council from 2013 to 2015, and then for 2 terms as mayor from 2015 to 2023. He led Salisbury in its nearly 30% growth in manufacturing jobs and a 175% increase in total existing housing. Also of particular interest to those of us here today, his administration oversaw the adoption of Housing First in 2017, which prioritizes moving people experiencing homelessness into houses or apartments. Salisbury was the first small city in the United States to adopt Housing First, which was previously adopted in larger cities such as New York, Los Angeles, and the District of Columbia. In 2021, they also announced the Here is Home initiative to build a tiny home village to house people exiting homelessness. Secretary Day is also a major in the United States Army, having enlisted in 2009. His dedication to service was evident during his second term as mayor, when he was twice deployed, first to the Horn of Africa through the Maryland National Guard during 2020 and 2021, and second to Estonia and Latvia in 2022. Fortunately for Maryland, Secretary Day was also willing to answer the call to serve when Governor Wes Moore nominated him as the Secretary of Housing and Community Development. He got to work right away. During the 2024 legislative session, Secretary Day successfully advocated for the passage of Governor Moore's legislative agenda, including 4 priorities. First, incentivizing the construction of affordable housing near commuter rail stations and on formerly owned state campuses. Second, increasing funding for affordable housing. Third, creating a state office of landlord and tenant affairs. And fourth, initiating a range of tenant anti-displacement protections, including the right of first refusal to purchase a residential rental property with 3 or fewer units. County Executive Elrich wanted me to convey his regret that he is not present to introduce Secretary Day himself. As he noted in his video a few minutes ago, he is out of the country on an economic development trip. He values the great working relationship that he and Secretary Day have developed in such a short time. It is my honor to welcome Secretary Day to the 33rd Annual Affordable Housing Summit of the Affordable Housing Conference of Montgomery County.
Well, good morning. It is a pleasure to be with you, Scott. Thank you so much for that introduction. Barbara, thank you for revealing that Ralph and I have a prior connection. Thank you for the incredible job that you and your board continue to do to make affordable housing a priority in Montgomery County and to help make Montgomery County a leader on this issue. So I want to be clear that it's not just sort of a note worth passing that Ralph Bennett was my professor in the School of Architecture at the University of Maryland. This is a person who taught me about the value of building lovable, dignified human settlements. And after all, that's truly what we are all endeavoring to do in our work. Once again, I am so proud to be here. I missed last year's conference. Unfortunately, scheduling didn't work out that I could be here, and I was incredibly sad. But I know we are always well represented. In fact, one of my colleagues, Kelly Vaughn, is on the board of directors of the conference, and I'm so glad that Kelly has served for many years in that role. I also want to note that I am proud to be right here in a community that has so many leaders that are committed to addressing housing affordability. Your county council, your county executive, county staff, HOC, you have so many people that are so committed to doing great work, and I don't get to say that in every community that I arrive in. In many places, it's not a foregone conclusion that we have work to do to address housing affordability. In many places, they don't have the leadership that you have, but you do, and you should be glad. I'm also proud to be here today because it's only about, a mile away, a place that I once called home, Garrett Park, and was very proud to be a brief resident of Montgomery County. Again, you got incredible leaders, and I'm lucky to be here. So what do we talk about this morning? We have anything to talk about? I think we do. I think it was a momentous session. I recognize what the state does is not always sort of the lens through which we view success or failure, but let's recall that the Maryland General Assembly, nor any Maryland governor, very often makes housing a priority and is willing to talk about it. But Governor Westmore introduced and signed into law upon their passage the most comprehensive housing package in decades, if not ever, in Maryland history. Through partnership with your local elected officials, with local officials from around the state, with advocates, and with the leaders in the Maryland General Assembly, we've made significant strides toward addressing what we know is at least a 96,000 unit housing shortage in this state. And what we know is astronomically rising housing costs around this state. This critical legislation was the result of months of collaboration, almost a year of collaboration and conversation between local and state government that was crucial to developing something that could actually pass, which was important, of course. And that included Montgomery County. It included your county council. It included your county executive. It included staff and local partners, including the conference, who were loud exactly when we needed them to be, who were not afraid to show up, to testify, to be heard in front of the legislators in Annapolis. They understood that their residents, like most Marylanders, just as we heard earlier with recent polling, strongly supported the goals of this legislation. The data has shown us that Marylanders need the state to step up and to be a part of that conversation. Between October 2021 and October 2023, household income needed to afford the median priced home in Maryland jumped 50%. More than half of Maryland renters are cost burdened. A quarter of them are spending 50% of their monthly income on rent alone. Maryland is currently ranked 7th most expensive state to live in due largely to our housing costs. And 9 in 10 Marylanders now say that housing affordability presents a real obstacle to them. A third of Marylanders aged 18 to 34 say that they are looking to leave this state due to housing costs. This is an existential economic threat to our future. Whether it's industry metrics or constituent polls or the comptroller's detailed economic report, the numbers and the data all tell us the same thing. We need to make Maryland more affordable. Governor Moore listened, and with his leadership, we acted. And during session, we put faces and numbers to give clear voice. So dozens of residents, dozens of officials from nearly every jurisdiction in this state showed up and testified in support of the bills. Now, taken together, the legislation that I'll talk about in a second provides a comprehensive and collaborative reboot to our housing landscape by spurring new housing construction, cutting burdensome red tape, enhancing long-term financial investment, centralizing resources for Maryland renters, and getting our economy moving again. And these three bills, the three governor's bills, are the foundation to reducing the housing shortage and increasing affordability. Let me start off by talking to you about the Housing Expansion and Affordability Act. This bill fundamentally reduces and removes artificial barriers and obstacles to producing more housing in this state, to bring Maryland's economy back. Maryland's got a long history, a long and proud history of adopting statewide regulation that says where we shouldn't build. We never finish the conversation. We've never done the other part of the work to incentivize putting housing where it should be. These density bonuses, the first component of the act, target the most suitable locations where we can increase density. And they are over and above local density bonuses. They are on top of by right zoning. They also acknowledge the general intent of local zoning, and they're intended to not dramatically change the character of place either. These density bonuses are focused on 3 locations: within 3/4 of a mile of a planned or existing passenger rail station. So my friends, think about the Purple Line. They are on properties owned by 501c3 corporations and on former state and federally owned campuses. These areas just make sense for more housing. Take, for example, state and federally owned campuses. This bird kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Yes, it helps produce more housing. It also helps bring those properties back to the tax rolls. It helps bring those properties back to the positive economic engines that they can and should be, and maybe once were when they were employment centers. It also prohibits, and this is critical, it prohibits unreasonable rules that would restrict the viability, density, or affordability of those housing developments. Yes, amen. I got one fan for that piece of the bill. And that may include anything from parking to setbacks to floor area ratio, all the things that local government, yes, is interested in, rightly so, but also the tools that sometimes get abused to stop projects from being permitted. The second component of the bill is squarely focused on construction costs. It allows now prefabricated homes, modular and manufactured homes, to be built in all single-family zones by right in the state. That will single-handedly help address high housing costs that are a barrier, and time frame, by the way, that are both barriers to producing housing and a barrier to the pathways to homeownership that could be accessible to more Maryland families. The second bill is the Housing and Community Development Financing Act. And at its core, this bill establishes the Maryland Community Investment Corporation, which is a community development entity, which will leverage New Markets tax credits to revitalize and strengthen lower-income communities in our state. These tax credits, established by the Treasury Department, have been instrumental in financing various real estate, development projects, and even business projects in low-income communities across the nation. With a $5 billion allocation annually, NMTC program is critical to Maryland's economic future, and it's something that, frankly, we have not leveraged maximally. We're leaving money on the table, and you and I both know we can't do that. So by harnessing the power of that tool and creating this new entity, and by unlocking the potential of Maryland's Strategic Demolition Fund, a statewide tool for implementing and supporting real estate development projects that are critical to our community's transformation, we will unlock new opportunities for economic growth. With our own state-sponsored community development entity, we gain greater control over the flexibility and designation of which projects will be undertaken, where, and how quickly. This enhancement accelerates the investment that we are attempting to produce through budget tools and through other programs that the department has been entrusted with. Now, finally, we have the Renters' Rights and Stabilization Act. This is a bill designed to address housing insecurity. This is a full-scale, ground-up approach that protects the most vulnerable: unsheltered homeless, tenants subject to a turbulent rental system, and those who have lacked opportunity to build and pass on generational wealth. The Renters' Rights and Stabilization Act addresses high eviction filing fees, establishes a new Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs, will design and disseminate a tenant's Bill of Rights statewide, reduce barriers to becoming a renter, and create new pathways to home ownership. It's going to take time for our supply-oriented tools to actually produce the housing that we need to address the affordability crisis. But doing nothing and waiting is not an option. As mentioned, more than half of Marylanders are cost burdened. Half of Maryland renters are cost burdened. For far too long, renters in Maryland have faced exploitation and manipulation due to systemic flaws and a lack of transparency. Perhaps the most striking example of this is Maryland's eviction filing fee, which was the lowest in the nation at $15, significantly lower than the national average $109. With the passage of this legislation, the fee is raised to $50, which strikes a balance between creating incentives for landlords to work with tenants prior to filing and allowing filing fees to be recoverable in some instances, but only from security deposits. Additional revenue drawn in by this fee increase will go to fund an innovative community schools-based voucher program, more funding for the new state voucher program, and to pay for legal assistance for renters facing eviction. Renters are truly at a disadvantage right now, struggling to survive, and then needing to navigate a confusing, complex patchwork of agencies and programs to get help. High security deposits, often equivalent to 2 months or more, create a significant barrier to renting for low-income Marylanders. By reducing and capping the allowable security deposit to 1 month's rent, we are reducing the cost-based barriers for people to become housed in the first place. Additionally, this Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs, housed within our department, will serve as the central point of assistance for Maryland renters in navigating that once confusing patchwork. It will be the first dedicated statewide office focused on the needs of renters, providing them with transparent resources on their rights and how to exercise them. Frequently asked questions, an accessible website, tailored information resources are just a few of the ways in which our new team will assist. By ensuring renters that have ready access to their rights in plain language, the pathway to self-advocacy is cleared. Options and, most importantly, solutions will be available. The Act also seeks to empower renters to transition to home ownership by providing them the first-in-the-nation statewide right of first refusal. And this is something I know you know a lot about here in Montgomery County. And essentially, under certain circumstances and conditions, the first opportunity to purchase the property will go to the renters within that home or that unit or set of units if it goes to sale. By providing renters the opportunity to purchase and remain in their homes, they have access to the economic benefits and generational wealth provided by home ownership. Furthermore, preventing the displacement of these households helps stabilize challenged neighborhoods and grow home ownership. I want to tell you about one more bill, and this was a departmental bill. Our departmental bill, the Just Communities Act of 2024, was also focused on disinvestment and displacement. But I want you to think for a second about broadly how we got to a place where race-based displacement occurred in this state and in this nation. If for a second you think it was clumsy or careless bureaucrats that caused that, please think again. This is deliberate, multi-generational effort to either rob wealth from people based on the color of their skin and from neighborhoods based on the preponderance of those who live there and the color of their skin, or it was by design of legislators with geographic disinvestment in certain places for those same reasons. And so the only way that we get around that, I'll give you something to applaud in just 1 second, I promise. The only way to get around that is to deliberately counteract that damage, to do the opposite, to reinvest, to do spatial, race-based reinvestment based on the damage of the past and where those damages have become essentially cemented in place, where we see neighborhoods that are stuck, where people have either been trapped by economic circumstances created in part by government, or where people have been forced to flee in order to find opportunity. And so the Just Communities Act directs our department and the administration to begin to reinvest in those places, to prioritize state dollars into those places. And you're going to see that work begin now. I'm also proud that we have a new division of Just Communities in our department and a new Assistant Secretary of Just Communities who's here today, Kat Gogenauer. So proud that you're with us and that you hold the position you do, Kat. So, ladies and gentlemen, this session was undoubtedly a turning point to reduce the housing shortage and to increase affordability. A lot of folks talked about this as the session of housing or the year of housing, but here's where we get to the theme of today's summit: building the future, unfinished business in affordable housing. Unfinished business. It's really nice to celebrate our victories. It always is. I'm proud of our accomplishments. And I'm incredibly grateful that while a year ago you knew you were getting a new housing secretary, you didn't know you were getting a housing governor. But you have. Wes Moore is going to lead on this issue. He is leading on this issue, and this is just the beginning. In this room, we all know that a foundation is something we got to build upon. So if we've achieved anything in building that foundation this year, we got more work to do. And so this was the year of housing, yes, but so is next year and the year after that. Let's keep building upon that foundation. I know everyone in this room will pick up their tools and is committed to doing that work. And I'll be right there with you. So thank you for letting me be here with you today. Thank you to this incredible team that you have and for allowing me to be a part of it. Best wishes for a pleasant and productive summit. Looking forward to sharing it with you. Thank you.
So in case y'all didn't know, back in the 50s, right here in Montgomery County, there was a person, a banker, who used to drive around and say, okay, not here, not here, not here, not here. He didn't have a red pen, but it's called redlining. So we know what that is, and we are so grateful to Secretary Day and our governor for taking steps, big steps, and for our legislature to follow in those steps and try to rid that. I'd ask Glenn Orlin, our board member, to come up and introduce our next speaker, and it follows that he will really play on what we've just heard. Glenn?
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning. I'm pleased to introduce David Zayden. David was appointed as Chief of Transit-Oriented Development, or TOD, at Maryland Department of Transportation in April of 2023, and leads the Office of Real Estate and Economic Development within MDOT's Secretary's Office. He's a trained city planner and real estate professional. He's had a 22-year career focused on TOD, private-public partnerships, and community development. He spent 12 years at the National Capital Planning Commission in Washington, D.C., followed by a tenure at Amtrak, and is a founding member of the Major Stations TOD Group and leading the Washington Union Station Expansion Project. After Amtrak, David spent several years consulting on TOD and transit-related projects around the world, while at Gensler before his current chief appointment at MDOT. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Urban Studies and a Master's of Community Planning from the University of Cincinnati, and a Master's of Science in Real Estate from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. So it's my pleasure to introduce Chief David Zayden.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and this is a really exciting conference. It's wonderful to hear about all the work that's happening on this important issue, as this issue is critical not only for Montgomery County, but for the region and for the state at large. So really, really excited to be here. On behalf of Secretary Paul Wiedefeld, the Maryland Department of Transportation is proud to partner with many of you to create opportunities for affordable housing. And my focus is to really bring those opportunities to bear in our opportunity sites adjacent to transit to help bring affordable, equitable, and accessible communities to the state. Governor Wes Moore leads with an all-hands-on-deck approach and sees transportation as an underlying way to help achieve the administration's many goals. After paying rent or the mortgage, transportation is the second largest expense for many families in the state of Maryland. For a single parent making minimum wage in Montgomery County, an average cost for owning a car could be $600 a month, and that is about a whole week's worth of wage. We know the costs associated with owning a vehicle can prevent families without having one, leaving many to rely on public transportation. And we want to make sure that transit is accessible and being able to harness connectivity to jobs and housing. MDOT has many tools to help low-income families, which will help create safe spaces and affordable housing for all. Today, I'll briefly run through our work to build a more balanced transportation system which focuses on the safety of all users, including pedestrians and bicyclists, who are the most vulnerable. I'll also discuss MDOT's work to expand and enhance public transportation to be more reliable in the state. But first, I want to start to talk about how all this ties together with transit-oriented development. As part of the Moore-Miller administration's state plan to make Maryland a more desirable and affordable place to live, MDOT is promoting and investing in transit-oriented development. We are working with many of our state partners and our local partners to bring all of our resources to bear to address this issue and advance the TOD agenda. This also includes Secretary Day and his team and the wonderful work that they're doing. This kind of development and transit-oriented development aims to create dense and compact mixed-use communities near transit stations to provide easy access to jobs, services, and housing. Ultimately, this will help move our economy forward. At MDOT, we are putting the Moore-Miller administration's mission into action. As a starting point, we've partnered with the Maryland Economic Development Corporation and issued contracts on two major transit-oriented development studies. First, we are standing up a true joint development program to address the development of state-owned land next to transit. We have a preponderance of development opportunities around many of our busy transit systems, not the least of which is the Mark Penn line, which is also the Northeast Corridor. We are working today to develop a transit-oriented development strategy to develop communities and mixed-use opportunities around our stations on the Mark Penn line. Additionally, we're beginning to address the transit-oriented development opportunities in the Baltimore region, which is our core service area, in terms of the transit that the state owns. We're developing a strategy to prioritize and understand the opportunities there as we look to build out our transit-oriented development program. Here in Montgomery County, MDOT is working with WMATA, who is a key partner, to invest in transit-oriented development at several Metro Rail stations. We are currently funding projects at the North Bethesda station nearby here, Shady Grove, Silver Spring, Twin Brook, and Wheaton stations. We believe as a funder of WMATA, the joint development program that WMATA leads provides many, many opportunities for the 26 Metro Rail stations that are in the state and to help address our housing shortages. Beyond TOD, we are enhancing and expanding transit statewide. MDOT is also committed to growing our transit system and making it accessible and operable for everyone. Of course, momentum is building along the Purple Line as that project is now more than 60% complete, which we're all very excited about. We will reach another milestone this summer when construction work will connect the future Purple Line to Metro's Silver Spring station and really creating Silver Spring as a multimodal connected hub for the region. Additionally, the Maryland Transit Administration is in talks to turn MARC from a commuter rail service to a true regional rail service, which will eventually connect to Northern Virginia and Delaware. This will help connect the economic centers of Delaware, Baltimore, and the DC and Northern Virginia communities, providing additional access to jobs and opportunities. We are also investing in the so-called last mile connections. This refers to the gap between the first or last part of a person's trip, which involves public transportation, such as getting from your home to a bus stop or from your job to a rail station. Most people either walk or bike, which is why ensuring our safety on roads is an important part of MDOT's top priorities. From a complete streets perspective, last year Secretary Wiedefeld directed the team to update and upgrade MDOT's 12-year-old complete streets policy. The concept aims to design and operate roadways to provide safe mobility options to all users. The Secretary will have an update on our work very soon. We are already moving forward with creating safe corridors on our state roads. In December, MDOT announced we are putting the action in the State Highway Administration's Pedestrian Safety Action Plan and announced the first 5 corridors advancing to the design stage of our Model Complete Streets initiative. Among the corridors is Maryland 650, New Hampshire Avenue, in Montgomery and Prince George's County. Between transit-oriented development, enhancing transit, and creating safer roads for everyone, the goal is to uplift communities and connect Marylanders to life's opportunities. This is how we achieve Governor Moore's mission to leave no one behind and make this Maryland's decade. I thank you very much for the invitation, and please enjoy the conference today. Thank you.
Dave, thank you so much. I was corrected a minute ago. I had evidently said that Montgomery County had 110 million people. No, 1.1 million. So I stand corrected. Thank you, Glenn Orland. Where are you? Thank you. Okay, now, last but not least, we are going to hear from a real star in Montgomery County. A couple years ago, he was a rising star, but he is a bona fide star now in our midst. I'm going to ask Minor Herrera, our board member, to come up and introduce our council president, Andrew Friedson.
Andrew Friedson represents Montgomery County District 1 on the City Council and also serves as chair. Council President Andrew Friedson is a lifelong resident of Montgomery County and lives in downtown Bethesda. He's in the second term of County Council, where he serves as chair of the county's Planning, Housing, Parks Committee and a member of the Government Operations, Fiscal, and Policy Committee. During his time on the council, Andrew has been a steadfast advocate for economic development and regional competitiveness, affordable housing, multimodal transportation infrastructure, government oversight, sustainable transit-oriented land use policies, and our cherished parks and open park spaces. It's a lot. He has become known for his work of enhancing quality of life, growing the local economy, and modernizing county government with pragmatic data-driven approach. Such a young guy, too. Can we say that all the time? As an aside, Andrew is the youngest ever councilman, ever. Upon taking office in December 2018, by all counts, he hit the ground running in his first year. He spearheaded successful legislation to support business requiring the economic impact statement of all county legislation to boost quality of life by maintaining pedestrian access around construction sites and to strengthen fiscal oversight by instituting regular financial reviews of all county spending. He led the effort to add millions in additional funding for affordable housing, restore proposed funding cuts for county parks, and increase coverage for emergency mental health housing. As a result, Andrew was named Best County Freshman Legislator and the Economic Fiscal Center of Montgomery County Council. He's helped to coordinate to create and sustain Bethesda, the Streetery, thank you very much, and other open street concepts, and has been leading advocate for pedestrian, bicycle safely, improving around District 1 throughout Montgomery County. Andrew has also been one of the council's steadfast advocates for critical transportation infrastructure, including Capitol Crescent Trail Tunnel, White Flint Metro Station, Northern Entrance, Bus Rapid Transit, and the restoration of service along the western segment of Metro's Red Line. Andrew has long been recognized for his expertise in fiscal issues and leadership on good governance reforms. He authored a successful ballot question to reform Montgomery County's 30-year-old property tax system, which garnered more than 60% of the vote and an immediate credit-positive reaction from moods based on county's improved fiscal standing. It earned him designation as one of Maryland's 2020 Election Day winners. A former chair of Montgomery County Collaboration Council for Children, Youth, and Families, board members of the Maryland 529 College Savings Program in Maryland, and Small Business Authority. Andrew serves on the boards of the Strathmore Hall Foundation, Bethesda Green, Glen Echo Partnership for the Arts, and Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. Councilman.
Thank you, Minor. Thank you to everybody for being here. It is a great morning to talk about one of my favorite, probably my favorite topic to talk about, which is housing. I'm so excited to be here with each of you who are on the forefront of tackling this issue. Thank you so much to Ralph and Eva and the entire AHCMC team, and especially to Barbara Goldberg-Goldman, who has known me, I think, my whole life, basically. I just am so grateful and so appreciative for over 30 years of advocacy advancing the ball for this critical topic, which is at the center of everything that we do, particularly at the local level in Montgomery County. It's an honor to be here. This lineup today underscores the importance of the work that each of you are doing on a daily basis. Our housing crisis is real, and it is an economic crisis, it's an environmental crisis, it's a moral crisis. And in order to combat it, we need federal, state, and local partnership, and really today's lineup is a testament to that. If we're going to tackle this crisis, we must tackle it together. I want to acknowledge a number of my colleagues who are in the room, Vice President Kate Stewart and Council Members Gabe Albernaz, Dawn Lukey, Marilyn Balcom, Lorianne Sales, and Natalie Fani-Gonzalez. I have the privilege of serving together with them as president of the Montgomery County Council this year, and I'm here to tell you that all of us on the Montgomery County Council share a commitment to tackling the housing crisis. And that means growing the housing stock at every level of affordability. It means reducing unnecessary, costly regulatory burdens, and it means utilizing incentives to encourage housing where we want and need it the most. It also means partnering with our private and nonprofit housing partners. Public housing is not a bad term. Housing developers are not a bad term. We have to change the way that we talk about these issues, and we need to be partnering with organizations and entities that we haven't previously partnered with, like our faith community, who have the ability to help be part of the solution to this crisis. This is a key way that we can address the equity challenges that we face, the environmental challenges that we face, and the economic challenges that we face. All of them are rooted at the core of the housing crisis. We have to transform the way that we talk about housing and the way that we think about housing, not as a burden to our communities, but as a benefit for our communities, rather than treating housing providers as a way to extract community benefits or public infrastructure. We need to recognize that housing is public infrastructure, and that it's the very heart of what creates communities. Housing doesn't change neighborhood character. Housing is what makes neighborhood character, and let us not allow anybody to forget that. Montgomery County used to lead the nation in innovative approaches to housing with nationally recognized inclusionary zoning concepts like the Moderately Priced Dwelling Unit Program, the MPDU program that you heard about from Barbara earlier. That was in the 1970s. But then the 90s and the 2000s rolled around, and we got left behind when it came to housing, when it came to building enough housing to actually serve the needs of our community. When I joined the council in 2018, I was convinced that we could once again lead the nation on housing innovations like the MPDU program, like inclusionary zoning. And after 6 years, I believe we are once again doing just that. There is no one silver bullet capable of solving this crisis alone, which is why we must continue expanding and fine-tuning our toolkit with as many new approaches as we possibly can. If we want to solve this crisis, we must recognize that we need more housing. Working with partners in the public and private sectors, we've been able to embrace innovative solutions, address the root causes of the crisis, and make it easier to build more units. My first year on the council, I helped lead an effort to increase our baseline annual commitment to the Housing Initiative Fund by $5 million more each and every year in perpetuity. 5 years later, we have exponentially increased from that baseline to what we are now investing in affordable housing, to a number that is much more appropriate to the needs on the ground. Working with former Councilmember Hans Riemer and our partners at Housing Opportunities Commission, we spearheaded the Housing Production Fund, a $100 million revolving loan fund that is supporting the production of new affordable housing projects and garnering national attention as jurisdictions work to replicate our successful model. The New York Times featured this as a way, and one of the ways, that local and state governments can tackle this crisis, and we appreciate the partnership of Secretary Day and our leaders in the State House who have seen this model and want to invest in this model and help spread this model to jurisdictions all around the state of Maryland. After years of work to match that $100 million fund with a $50 million nonprofit preservation fund, we are finally at the point of launching that fund. I led an effort to introduce a $20 million appropriation that put that effort forward, and working together with my colleagues on the Housing committee, the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, along with Director Scott Bruton, bringing together all of the stakeholders, we finally figured out a way to move forward, working with DHCA and HOC together in partnership with our nonprofit providers so that we can preserve 1/2 of the naturally occurring affordable housing that's at risk currently. This would be the most meaningful preservation effort of any local jurisdiction, certainly anywhere in the region, probably anywhere in the country. And it's another example of how when we bring the collective wisdom of people in this room together, we can solve the biggest challenges that we face. To incentivize the building of new high-rise housing on Metro Station property, work together with colleagues to create the More Housing at Metro Act. It's a property tax exemption that understands that currently we have parking lots in the most strategic and most important locations in our region. Holes that should be hubs for our community. Parking lots for cars when they could be places, vibrant places and communities for people. And so we have provided a property tax abatement to spur that. And there were questions of whether or not we were going to get affordable housing out of it or whether or not we were going to get housing alone. And right across the street, up the street, I should say, at the Grosvenor Metro, we now have a project that's going to have 22% moderately priced dwelling units, affordable housing units with a partnership with Amazon. And we're building high-rise housing in a place that when I grew up was a dormant, paved-over parking lot. It is an example of how we can turn parking lots into places and spaces, and we can forget about car storage and focus more on places for people to live, dignified, safe, affordable housing for people to live in. Public land should be put to its best use, and that's an example of how we can do it. We can't simply fund our way out of these challenges alone, and so we have been moving forward with changing the way that we think about zoning and master planning. You heard earlier about Thrive 2050. This has given us a roadmap of how we move forward in an environmentally sustainable way, in an economically competitive way, and in an equitable way to make sure that not only are we growing in our community, but we're growing and everybody in our community and our county is benefiting from it. We're about to take up the growth and infrastructure policy again, and there's a panel later today with one of my colleagues, Dawn Lukey, on it. The last growth and infrastructure policy from 4 years ago, we did a number of really important things, including establishing a proposal that I had for desired growth areas that are transit-focused for housing and jobs, and ending countywide the failed housing moratorium that starved our schools and our communities of the housing and the school funding that we desperately needed. We need to do everything that we can to make the construction of affordable housing more viable by reducing unnecessary burdens and costs. I was pleased to work together with Councilmember Sales to introduce legislation earlier this council session last year to reduce the regulatory burdens by 75% if you meet affordability thresholds. Pretty much any qualified affordable housing project through any of the programs that we offer, if you do it through this program, it will reduce the time it takes to bring these units to the market by 75%. Just to give an example, based on one project in Forest Glen, Montgomery Hills area that was recently built, it would have saved that project $8 million. $8 million that could go to deeper levels of affordability, broader aspects of affordability, or the next project for more affordable housing units, and we were able to do that. Working together with council members Mink and Glass, we passed a measure just recently to eliminate outdated artificial parking requirements for transit-oriented housing projects. Yet another example of how we shouldn't be just following the failed policies of the past. We should be thinking about how we move forward to build the future that we want. Working together with Council Vice President Kate Stewart, we recently passed an exciting measure to partner with our faith-based organizations. We have so many faith-based organizations who for years and decades have been part of the advocacy to build more affordable housing, but we haven't given them the tools to actually act on that with the vacant parking lots and large portions of property that they have. Now we're doing that. We're making it much easier. We're green taping those aspects so they can be part of the solution and not just part of the advocacy, so that we can help people take action so that our rhetoric and the reality can be more aligned. We have to embrace opportunities to advance our equity goals by prioritizing inclusive, accessible housing, Together, we can make and must make housing more accessible and affordable, not only to ensure existing residents can age here with dignity, vitality, and security, but also so that our county can continue to attract the talent and diversity that continues to define who we are here in Montgomery County. As chair of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, I've been proud to work together with colleagues in our cutting-edge planning department to establish local housing targets, not only for 2030, which we committed to and which jurisdictions have been doing to localize that at the planning level so that we can actually understand how we are meeting those goals, but thinking about 2040 and 2050. We'll be the first jurisdiction anywhere to start setting targets for 2040 and 2050. The reality is projects today can help us meet our 2030 goals, but policies won't. It'll take too long. So we need to start thinking about our targets for 2040 and 2050 so that we can work together with leaders like Secretary Day and Governor Moore and colleagues throughout county government and beyond so that we can actually be in a position to solve those issues. Let me just close and say how grateful I am to work with my colleagues in Montgomery County government, and especially to work with our partners at the state level as well. We do have a housing governor. We do have a terrific housing secretary, and it is so refreshing to have leadership of the state, to have a governor and a secretary who are leaning in on housing and who are leading on housing, and I look forward to continuing to be a partner for them and a partner for each of you. In this room, we have the collective wisdom to solve all of these challenges. They are not easy, but I am more convinced than ever before that we are going to lead on housing like we never have before in Maryland and Montgomery County, and it will be because the challenges that we face pale in comparison to the collective wisdom and talent and ingenuity that sits in this room and that we'll be part of today. So thank you so much for everything that you do for Montgomery County and for housing. And I look forward to a great conference.
So I delivered the bad news, but we have room to be optimistic by virtue of what we heard up here this morning. I'm going to send you on your way as you're taking a seventh inning stretch, make your way down to the panels. We really do have 600 expected at lunch, so after your panel, please don't dawdle, make your way back here so that we can start our lunch quickly and get right into the program. I'm not going to pull a Lyndon Baines Johnson, but once you're in, I really do want the doors closed, and I want to give the respect to all of the speakers who are presenting at lunch. So I hope you'll stay. But right now, stretch on your way down to the panels and enjoy your journey.